Now section 1.5 is basically talking about exponents. So before you do this section, you want to make sure you understand properties of exponents, which is explained in table 10. And also read and look at the examples, which is already done in the section. So section 1.1, 1.5, problem number, let's see, 1.5, we do number 20 first. Number 20 has 5 to the minus 2 power times 5 to the minus 2 power divided by 5 to the minus 5 power, and then the whole thing to the minus 2 power equal to. One thing I can do is to get rid of the denominator here. And since denominator is 5 to the minus 5 power, I can bring it up to the numerator, and all I have to do is to change the sign of the power. So this would read as, keep the parentheses here, 5 minus 2, which I already had, times 5 minus 2, times 5, instead of minus 5, it would be plus 5, to the minus 2 power, equal to. Now, one of the properties says h to the m power, let me write this down, h to the m power times h to the n power is equal to h to the m plus n. So you add up, if the base is the same, you add up the power. And as you can see here, the basis for all of them is 5. So here I can write as 1, 5, and add up the powers, which is minus 2 plus 5, the whole thing to the minus 2 power, equal to 5, minus 2, and minus 2 is minus 4. Minus 4 plus 5 is 1 to the minus 2 power. Now we had another property that says h to the m power, the whole thing to the n power, is equal to h to the m times n. So we use that here, and it would be, it is 5 to the 1 power to the minus 2 power would be equal to 5 to the minus 2 power. That's minus 2 times 1, it would be minus 2. Now, since we normally do not like to have a negative exponent, we write that as 1 over 5 to the second, which is equal to 1 over 25. That is the final answer for this problem. Again, remind you, you have to understand, you have to read the properties of exponent in this section before you attempt the problems. Let's do another problem from this same section. Problem number 52. It says u times v to the minus 1 power, u times v to the minus 1 power, divided by u to the minus 1 plus v to the minus 1. U to the minus 1 plus v to the minus 1 equal to. Now, as you know, whenever we have a negative power, we can write that with a positive power. All we have to do is inverse it. So the numerator here would look like 1 over u times v to the 1 power, of course, which is, we don't have to write the 1 power. And then u to the minus 1 would be 1 over u to the 1, and v to the minus 1 would be 1 over v to 1. Let me write this a little cleaner. So the numerator, you have 1 over uv, and denominator is 1 over u plus 1 over v, equal to, I'm going to write the numerator as is, 1 over uv. Denominator, I take the common denominator between the two terms. It would be uv, and then the numerator would be v plus u. Now, multiplication of the furthest terms divided by multiplication of the closest term. That's what I would like to call it, equal to. So you would have the numerator, which is 1 times uv, which would be uv, and the denominator, which would be uv times v plus u, equal to. Now the uv in the numerator and uv in the denominator would cancel. You would have your final answer, 1 over v plus u. That is the final answer.